Good afternoon to you. September the 23rd, about 1 o'clock in the afternoon as we record the All 32 podcast, a proud member of the CLNS Media Network, and of course brought to you by the #1 daily fantasy sports app in North America, PrizePicks. Download the app today. Get $50 in lineups after you play your first 5. PrizePicks, run your game. Going to do our 4 quarters as we do here normally on Tuesdays, where I kind of take you through some of the things that happened in the game and some of the things that I'm looking forward to as you move ahead to the Carolina week. Of course, the Panthers coming into Foxboro on Sunday for a 1 o'clock game. And at first quarter, we got to start with the guy that matters the most, right? And that's Drake Maye. And one of these days, Drake is going to put together a string of games, not just a series or just a singular game, but he's going to do it week after week after week. And when he does that, we have exactly what we think we have in front of us, which is a franchise quarterback. But up until then, there's still going to be questions. There's still going to be moments where you scratch your head and say, is he ever going to get over this wildcat, YOLO, bucking Bronco thing that he does in the pocket where he makes decisions or tries to make plays that, quite frankly, in the moment, he shouldn't be making. And that's really been an issue for him through the early part of his career, right? We're talking about 16 starts in, I believe it is now. And the nickname that Jim Murray from the Sports Hub gave him, Two-A-Day May, continues to be a thing that shows up where Drake Maye is turning the ball over generally twice a game, putting it on the ground with fumbles. He had a critical one, obviously, in the game against the Steelers, and the interception in the red zone, in the end zone, which was an absolute killer. Those 2 turnovers were 100% on him, and one definitively, the one in the end zone, took points off the board, and the second one probably did as well. And Mike Vrabel, who is clearly more of a Bill Belichick approach with his quarterback in that I'm not going to show him a lot of love. I mean, there'll be some, but I'm also going to point out the things that he does wrong, which is not something that they really wanted to do last year in Maye's rookie season. You're seeing that. And Vrabel told WEEI on Monday morning that interception was all on him. That throw shouldn't have been flat. It should have had some arc to it. It should have been thrown to the back of the end zone. That would have kept Brandon Nichols out of the play completely. Instead, he throws it on the line. Cam Hayward gets his hands on it, and then Nichols picks off the pass. There's also an easy pitch and catch 2 plays prior to that, again, from the 3 or 4 yard line, where he has Austin Hooper in the left flat and he doesn't throw the ball. And that showed up again on the final drive of the game where he had a check down potential for TreVeyon Henderson. And he had just completed one to Henderson where it was probably an easy 6 or 7 yard gain, which is a profit, right? Take the damn profit. And he didn't take it. He didn't take it there with Hooper. And look, they were playing zone, so maybe they rally to Hooper and stop him before he gets to the goal line. But that's a pretty big, strong dude. And from the 2 or 3 yard line with the football in his hands, I have faith that he's going to score. So maybe we're not even having this conversation. Maybe that's the thing that all of a sudden now the Patriots go into halftime, coming off the touchdown, feeling great. As Maye said, he kind of carried it with him throughout the entirety of halftime. And then they were sluggish to start the third quarter. And you wonder if there was a little bit of a lingering hangover in Drake Maye's head. As for the fumble in Pittsburgh territory, Maye himself called the decision stupid after the game. Okay, so he said it, not me. Those were his words. What was crazy about it was obviously instant pressure and things were going on all parts around him, left side, right side, up the middle. But he protected the football. He pulled it into his body. He had the right sense in that moment to take care of the football. But then for some reason, when he seemingly escaped that, he made the decision, as he said, he was going to pitch the ball, flick the ball, whatever, backhand flip to TreVeyon Henderson, who was running away from him. He was going this way. Henderson's coming this way. I don't really know how he would get the ball in there. I mentioned this with Andrew Callahan on the pass interference pod that we do after games on Monday night. And I mean, it was just illogical at the time. And instead, he exposes the football. Nate Herbig, who never stops, kind of like Harold Landry for the Patriots. The motor is always running. He knocks the ball free. Just a critical mistake. And as Vrabel said later, he did so many good things in the game. Some of the decision-making, the accuracy. I mean, he threw some balls. Absolutely. The seam ball to Hunter Henry was absolutely gorgeous. He put that slant, a deep in cut to Austin Hooper right in his chest with a defender on his back. The third down conversion to Kayshon Boutte on the deep dig. Like, there were some just elements of high-level quarterback play and accuracy. Decisiveness against the blitz, too. Let's talk about that, where, you wondered, can he handle pressure? I think 11 of 14 versus the blitz in the game. And it was one of those things where he saw it, he read it, and the ball came out quick, which is exactly what you want. Like, identify where it's coming from and throw to where you can hurt them. And he did that over and over again in the game. But again, till he puts the complete package together like he did in week 2, and then does it again in week 3, and then again in week 4, and then again in week 5, we're going to still have those lingering questions. Is when is it going to happen? When is he going to take that second-year leap and become the quarterback that, again, we all think that he has the talent and the mentality for? Second down, I counted 14 missed tackles. Now, other sites had 12. Some had 13. I had 14. I trust my numbers. They trust theirs. Bottom line, it's too big of a number wherever you're looking at, 12, 13, or 14. Now, unlike the first couple of weeks, Robert Spillane was not a big factor in this. Spillane obviously was leading the National Football League in blown tackles in the first 2 weeks. He only had one in this game. He had 15 total tackles, had the interception, only had one missed tackle. It was a big one. It came on the Steelers, what turned out to be the game-winning drive. Jalen Warren in the flat, caught him flat-footed, and turned what should have been a 5-yard gain into a 15-yard gain, which, again, when you're in that moment in a tie football game, you need to make a play there, and that's one you'd like to have. But in general, Spillane was very good. When you look at that number, I mean, I don't know if it's just me, but raise your hand if you thought that this is what you were going to see from a Mike Vrabel coached football team. And it's not just the missed tackles, because Vrabel, look, let's go back to his time as a player. And I know we're talking 20 years ago, but he was one of the most fundamentally sound football players, one of the smartest football players that Bill Belichick ever coached. And were Bill not hating on the Patriots, he would tell you that about Mike Vrabel and how he felt about Mike Vrabel. I'm sure you can go back and find somewhere in the archives when he didn't feel the way he feels about the Patriots now. And his teams in the Titans, which I covered at the NFL Network, especially the 3-year window where they were really good playoff football teams, as fundamentally sound as any team that you would watch. Not necessarily blessed with an exorbitant amount of talent, but they had the details mastered. They didn't miss a lot of tackles. They didn't commit a lot of these mind-numbing mental errors. The penalties. You realize after 3 weeks, the Patriots have 27 penalties? 27. And Mike talked about it after the game or on Monday. Well, we cleaned it up after the beginning. Well, how about if you clean it up from the jump instead of giving the opposition free yards and extra plays? That's got to stop. And certainly there were a couple calls in that game. The DPI against Carlton Davis was a terrible call, but there's going to be terrible calls over the course of the game. Minimize the stupid stuff like jumping off sides. Caleb Von Chason has done that 3 times, did it 3 times in 5 quarters for a period there dating back to the Miami game. Those things have to go away. And Patriots can't claim that they're that team that Mike had in Tennessee that was really on their details and didn't mess these things up. So basically they've painted a picture now that they're an undisciplined football team. And for a team that doesn't have the most talented roster, better this year, obviously, than last year by a long shot, but still not at a high-end roster, and certainly one that lacks depth, they have to win football games in the margins. So we can talk about the turnovers, and look, you're just not going to win a game. You turn the ball over 5 times. But these other things keep adding up as well, costing them yards because of the missed tackles, because of the penalties that they just can't do if they're going to be a winning football team this year, which a lot of people expect. I had them at 8-9, but that's on the cusp. 8-9, 9-8, 10-7, 7-10. Like, those things are all sort of in the same thing. A bounce here, a play there. But the Patriots probably look at their first 3 weeks now and say, it could be 3-0. Now, you could argue the opposite. They could be 0-3, but that's the margin in the National Football League. Most of these games are one-score games, and if you don't have the most talented team, then you have to be buttoned up, and the Patriots haven't been buttoned up. Before I get to the third down and talk to you about some of our sponsors, I did write these notes down. When Vrabel was asked about Ramondre Stevenson, he said, I'm sticking with Ramondre. Now, it might look a little different this week. He did hint at. We'll see how he feels as the week goes on and how Ramondre responds. But his quote was, we're going to continue to coach the crap out of it. And that's the ball security stuff. The same should hold true for all these other aspects, right? I mean, I think there were more signs here in week 3 that the players are on notice. Vrabel didn't tolerate Christian Ellis with the 2 missed tackles and a couple other shaky assignment plays that he may have messed up. He came out of the game for Jack Gibbons, and Gibbons is no world beater, but at least they got a little bit more consistent play from him. Marte Mapu, after he faked a blitz and didn't get back in coverage fast enough, I don't believe we saw him again in the game. So that's another example of, hey, no, that's not good enough. And then, of course, Alex Austin, who committed 2 defensive penalties in the early stages of the game, and they yanked him, put Marcus Jones on the outside, put Charles Woods, who they claimed on waivers right before the start of the season, or maybe after week 1, I forget, whatever. Early in the year, they put him in there, and Woods actually did a decent job. And obviously, things will change if Christian Gonzalez is in the lineup and the trickle-down effect is less. But like a lack of tolerance now for certain players and their mistakes and making decisions there. Whether those guys re-enter the lineup this week, certainly Gonzalez Austin's availability will hinge on Gonzalez's availability. But like, I wouldn't surprise me if Jack Gibbons gets the start and Christian Ellis is more of a substitute player and a special teams guy going forward. Let's hear from PrizePicks, because PrizePicks is the best. And, we're in the just the best part of the year, quite frankly. You've got the football season going on. You've got, we're getting close to baseball playoffs. You have women's basketball playoffs. PrizePicks is the #1 daily fantasy sports app in North America. As I told you off the top of the show, over 10 million members. You can pretty much play this thing anywhere. And it's interesting because you're allowed to cross sports, right? You can throw together different things. You have a sense about the Red Sox, and maybe Cedon Rafael is going to heat up, and maybe it's time for him to hit a home run tonight. Well, go look at it. It's just more or less on 2 players up to 6 to win up to 1,000 times your cash. So just download the app today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 off lineups after your first 5. Again, download the app today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 in lineups off your first 5 PrizePicks. Run your game. And as we mentioned on the Pat's Interference podcast last night, if you were watching Monday, Andrew Callahan and I have been on a little bit of a heater in that regard. So, you might want to tail us later in the week when we give you our picks. And while I'm at it, I want to talk to you about Ethos, because I'm one of those people that was like, I'm not spending money on life insurance. That's ridiculous. And as I've mentioned here before, when it came to Ethos, then I had a kid. Then I had another kid. He bought a house. Like, what happens if something were to happen to me? Knock on wood. Maybe some of you want that. I don't want that. I don't think my family wants that. You want to make sure that they're protected, and that's where Ethos comes into play, because I'm someone who likes things to be simple. I want you to break it down. I don't want to have to work that hard for something like this. Ethos does that 100% online, and you can get quotes in as little as 10 minutes, and you can pretty much set your balance, really. Basically, how much do you want to pay? How high to the coverage you want to go. It's non-medical insurance too, so you don't have to get that life insurance thing. I've done that before with other places. Pain in the butt. You got to set up the thing. Sometimes they come to the house. Sometimes you got to go to them. And it's like, no, I don't want to waste time on this. I just give me a policy and get it done. Ethos will give you same-day coverage without leaving your house. Who doesn't love that? So you definitely want to be involved with them. And just to kind of back it up, a lot of people have taken this route. As of March 2025, Business Insider named Ethos the #1 no medical exam instant life insurance provider. 3 million families have completed their applications and trusted Ethos to give them their coverage. Ethos has 4.8 out of 5 stars on Trustpilot with over 2,500 reviews. That's the kind of security that you're looking for. That's the kind of security that allows you to put your head on the pillow at night and say, if anything were to happen, I know my family is taken care of. That is the most important thing to me. I would do anything for them. This is a simple way to do anything for your family. So protect your family with life insurance from Ethos. Get your free quote at ethos.com/all32, the podcast name. Again, that's ethos, ethos.com/all32. All right, enough of the ad reads. Let's get back to football here, and let's go to third down. I've been pleasantly surprised by rookie left tackle Will Campbell's performance, especially the first 2 weeks of the season, after what I would consider, and I think anybody who's being fair, a roller coastery-like performance during the summertime, at least when it came to pass protection. I don't think there's any doubt that Will Campbell is already a good run blocker at the National Football League level. But as a pass protector, there's going to be growing pains. We've talked about the arm length, that whole thing. It's also just being a rookie at that position. Very few guys come in and are locked down right away. Like those are the best of the best. Maybe Campbell puts himself in that category eventually. Maybe it happens this year, but he had a more difficult performance than the one that he put on tape against Miami when I thought he was actually dominant over Bradley Chubb. And this is an experience coming off of that where I felt like this plays into Campbell's hands, right? Alex Highsmith, the terrific other edge rusher in Pittsburgh, not named TJ Watt, missing the game with injury. His backup is Nate Herbig. Nate Herbig is fast. He's relentless as a pass rusher, but he's not the biggest guy. He's not Highsmith size. He's certainly not Watt size. And I thought with Campbell's athleticism, he would be able to control Herbig on the outside. And in fact, I thought he would be able to dominate him in the run game, which when you look at how teams have been playing Pittsburgh, made a lot of sense because everybody had decided, as we talked about on the pod at the end of last week, you don't run a TJ Watt. They'd only run a TJ Watt 12 or 13 times this year, 2.5 yards per carry. 34 times in the other direction, 6 yards per carry. Who doesn't want that? The Patriots tried to do the exact same thing. Some of that wide zone action weren't very successful. Campbell, part of the reason why, just not effective moving people, which is a surprise again because I do think that he is already an above average to good run blocker. But then as the game wore on, Herbig's speed presented, I should say, more and more problems for Will Campbell. And this isn't to say that Will Campbell had a bad game, but in several big moments, Will Campbell got beat by Herbig, and they led to big plays. Inside pass rush moves, which is another thing that we've talked about with Campbell, because of the arm length thing that some of you don't want to dismiss and some of you don't, he oversets. That's when he got beat at LSU. That's what was happening. Some of the stuff we saw this summer, same thing. He oversets because he's afraid, because of the arm length, that a speed rusher coming to the outside, that guy's going to get his hand on his arm first, chop it down, and get around the edge. He doesn't want that to happen. Big plays happen. What he does then is by oversetting, he opens the door inside. And Herbig waited and waited and waited, and he busted out an inside pass rush move when the Patriots were inside the 5-yard line on the same drive that ended with the interception in the end zone. And Herbig absolutely clobbered Drake Maye. That's the head off the turf, which, let's be real, we hear all this talk about player safety and the concussion spotters. Not only did he bang his head against the turf, Drake Maye, he immediately went to his head. Okay, immediately, which is like a telltale sign of like, ow, something happened. That's when they're supposed to call down. I mean, May told us after the game, oh, I learned from last year. I learned you got to get up right away. Great. Now they're gaming the system, which, again, I understand that they want to play. They don't want to come out. And he certainly felt last year one of the concussions that knocked him out of the game against the Jets wasn't a concussion at all. Was very disgusted with the whole process. But I don't know how they didn't see that. But back to the point. The point is Herbig made an important play, and then 2 plays later, Maye throws the interception. Are they related? I don't know. But just know that he busted out a big move. And then again, later in the critical spot where he beat him to the inside, forced Maye to step up in the pocket. And then, of course, Herbig ended up with the forced fumble on as I mentioned, that TreVeyon Henderson play where just can't happen. Bottom line is, still feel good about the way he's played thus far, but there are going to be moments like this where he's going to have problems and he's going to get set up like that by savvy pass rushers, and we'll see how he responds to it. The thing that you have to like about Will Campbell to this point, and I've said this repeatedly over the course of the summer, is generally when he's had a bad day or bad reps or a bad period in practice, he's come back the next time and he's cleaned that up and he's been better. And that doesn't mean it continues to go straight up. There still will be step backs and points, but I like his ability to sort of learn and grow from that. As he said before, it's the Josh McDaniels thing where, and I'm going to screw up the quote, but it was basically like, if you're not losing, you're learning, or if you're losing, you can still learn, or something to that effect. I should stick that on my computer, but it's a good point that McDaniels made to him. And I think that Will has shown that, but in some big moments, Nate Herbig got the best of Will Campbell, and it hurt the Patriots offense. Fourth quarter, final one. And there's been a lot of talk about running backs in the last 36 hours. I'll give you my thoughts here that go beyond Ramondre Stevenson, although we'll talk about him as well. But TreVeyon Henderson isn't ready to be a bell cow back. And that, of course, has been the conversation. Well, why not just play him more? If Ramondre's going to put the ball on the ground, if Gibson's going to put the ball on the ground, play Henderson more. The tape hasn't been real kind to TreVeyon Henderson through the first 3 weeks of the season, in particular the last two. So the notion of sending Ramondre Stevenson to Siberia, it's a little bit much. It's unfortunate because I think in a different circumstance with a different kind of football team, maybe you could tell Ramondre to go sit over there and we're not going to break you out for a long time until you've built our trust back. But I think with the way this team is built, he's still one of their better offensive players, even if, again, I mean, you can't overlook the 2 turnovers. But I just don't think they can afford to do that. He's still one of their most trusted guys in pass protection. And that's another area, by the way, that Henderson is struggling with. And that's something that Henderson was, look, I was probably the first on that train of like, you guys don't understand how good of a pass protector he is and how quickly he might be able to integrate himself into the system, because that's something that Josh demands of his backs. You got to be able to protect. But we saw with the 3 holding calls 2 weeks ago against Miami, he struggled again on a couple of pickups in this game, although there was a good rep later in the game. But that's not been a strength of his just yet, at least in the regular season, as he adjusts to the size, the different pressures that teams are bringing, and quite frankly, maybe some confidence. Like, hey, I was good at this, and now I'm struggling a little bit, and that's sort of a valley that all rookies can tend to go through. The other part of this is, well, Giardi, why wouldn't you play Henderson more? He was the most explosive player they had on the football team. You told me that repeatedly in August. He was the most explosive player, capable of taking, a 2-yard play and turning it into 55 yards. We saw the kick return for a touchdown. We saw a couple really good runs. We saw him running over people. He does run physically. I would tell you this, his patience has been lacking on some of these runs, especially when he took over for Stevenson and Gibson, when he became the primary guy for basically the second half of the football game against the Steelers, where he ran into contact far more than he should have. And when you look at it, maybe there weren't big holes, but these were the kind of holes that, at least in the preseason, he was ducking through and making things happen. Think about the touchdown run against Minnesota in the preseason game where he got through that traffic and then cut it up, and it was just a beautiful play, the kind of play that makes you think like, oh, he could be the guy. I'm still there. I think he can still be that guy eventually. But at this point, he's not seeing it as well as you would like him to see. And that lack of patience and that lack of vision has led him to run into contact and not be very productive as a runner. They need more from him, just like they obviously need more from Ramondre in terms of holding on to the football, because part of their identity is really to be that balanced football team. Everybody says it, but that's really what they want to do. They don't want to have Drake having to throw the ball 35, 40 times a game. They want the numbers that were closer to week 2 with the balance of 23 runs and 23 passes or whatever it was, where Maye doesn't feel like it is all on him to do it. And I think it's kind of what you saw in the fourth quarter. For as good as he was for parts, and I think he completed 15 of 16, there are a couple moments where he just tried to do too much. That means you've got to figure out a way to get the running game going. As I mentioned, I don't think the offensive line was awesome run blocking in this game, not certainly like they were pretty good against Miami, more like week 1 against Vegas where they struggled to move people. But there were still more holes in this game than there certainly were against Vegas, and in part, Henderson's inability to see them, hit them, and turn 2 yards into 6 or turn 0 into 5 was problematic. Which means I don't think you can bench Ramondre Stevenson for this week. Maybe reduce his snaps for sure. Maybe Gibson gets to be the number 1 back. Henderson's the change-up back. But I still think you need Ramondre Stevenson in the mix. As I mentioned, still their most trusted pass protect guy. And that's why they put him in late in the game on a couple snaps after essentially he had been benched, because they were like, well, Henderson's not ready to do this, and that's not Gibson's forte. So let's have Stevenson do it. This is why they pay Mike Vrabel the big bucks, and this is why they pay Josh McDaniels the big bucks to whatever the head coach asks and figure out a plan that works. But I'm not ready to just bury Ramondre yet. Again, maybe a reduction of snaps. Maybe it's a significant reduction, but I have him active for the game, and I still have him as part of the plan. Before we get out of here, a little overtime for you as we kind of go around the league, hence the name All 32. So much for the Packers running the table, right? That was a fun conversation for about a half a day. They lost to the Cleveland Browns. And it did expose some problems with the Packers offense, which again has a lot of 2s at receiver, but no 1 yet. And And Jordan Love is still capable of throwing in a clunker, and that was an absolute dud of a game from him. But my big takeaway from this one, Cleveland's not going to be an easy team to play. Patriots have them on their schedule later. Yes, I know it's a Joe Flacco-led offense. Joe Flacco doesn't scare anybody, but that team is playing smartly on offense, even if not explosively. But it's the defense where it matters. Jim Schwartz has this group back to what it was 2 years ago, which is to say one of the best units in the league. And so long as they don't feel like they're beaten down because their offense is giving them a lack of support, they're going to do this to a lot of teams. They're going to turn a lot of these games that you think should be one-sided, because I don't think Cleveland's going to win a lot of football games, and they're going to turn them into rock fights. And I'm not sure that the Patriots, and again, this is down the road, but this version of the Patriots isn't ready for a rock fight. But Cleveland, credit to them for hanging in, because, again, they're not a super talented football team on offense, but the defense is loaded and playing well. Right before we decided to record this podcast, Jackson Dart been named the starting quarterback for the New York Giants. It took just 3 weeks of Russell Wilson play, 3 losses, 2 of which were competitive-ish, for Brian Daboll to make the move. Look, Daboll's on the hot seat. The owner, Mara, has said, like, I kind of expect playoffs this year, which I thought was kind of a ludicrous thing to say for a team that picked, what did they pick, 4th in the draft, 3rd in the draft, wherever they were, and then traded up to get Dart in the first round. But Daboll loves Dart, fell in love with him during the process, has raved about him on the record and off the record throughout the spring and the summer. There were checkpoints that they wanted him to meet before they decided to play him. And then last week he had a series here and a series there, a few plays here, a few plays there. And, well, does that mean he met the checkpoint? And he's like, we wouldn't put him in there if we didn't think he could handle it. And now they're giving him the whole thing. Look, this reeks of desperation. I think in a perfect world, they would have got 8 or 9 games out of Russell Wilson, been 3-5 or something, and then made the move to Dart in the second half of the season. But despite throwing for over 400 yards in week 2 against the Cowboys, I think we learned that that's not who Russell Wilson, well, we know that's not who Russell Wilson is. That was more a reflection of Dallas, their defensive approach. I think Dan Orlovsky tweeted it's the worst zone defense he's ever seen. And Russell was back to being Russell, and also threw a pass out of bounds on 4th down, like didn't give anybody a chance. On 4th down, you at least got to give your guys a chance. He didn't. So now it's Dart, and I don't think there's any turning back. This better go well for Brian Daboll, or he's going to be out of work, and then they'll be talking about 2 years or 3 years from now how Jackson Dart was Zach Wilson or whomever, young quarterback thrown to the Wolves too early for in an ecosystem that wasn't ready to handle him. And then finally, I wasn't down on the Lions, but I thought the loss of both coordinators to head coaching job, Ben Johnson, of course, with Chicago, Aaron Glenn, of course, with the Jets, was going to pose problems for them. Thought that the hiring of John Morton as the John Morton, I think, as the offensive coordinator, 50-something years old, only coordinated an offense once. That was with the Jets many moons ago, was an uninspired choice. They went into Baltimore, and I know they gave up 31 points, but they kind of kicked Baltimore's ass. Not even kind of. Dominated them up front. Morton was in his bag calling trick plays. The pitch to, was it to Gibbs, then the pitch to Amon, or Amon to Gibbs, whatever it was, it happened. It was reminiscent of what Ben Johnson did. They still have that mentality. We're going to go for it. We're going to make you earn it. I was concerned that their line would take a step back. Not so far after that first game. They put it together for the last 2. That's as impressive as a win, basically, is what I'm saying, in Baltimore, as any team has had through the first 3 weeks of the season. So Dan Campbell is better and better and better than we ever thought. People made fun of him for the kneecap thing, but he has that team playing hard. That team plays ready. They know what to expect. Their coaches know what to expect. The whole 4-down thing on offense, like, Morton's calling the game, and he knows, hey, we're in an area of the field where Dan's going to tell us to go, where the numbers tell us to go, and we're going to go. So I'm calling 3rd down not to get the 8 yards. I'm calling 3rd down if we get 5 or 6, and now we're in 4th and manageable, then that works too. So that's a really well-run organization, and who would have thought that about the Detroit Lions, who had been miserable for all those years. All right, that's going to put a wrap on this edition of the All 32 Pod. I thank you for being with me as always. Rate and review. Those 5 stars are beautiful. If you do that, we love it. Don't be afraid to comment on the YouTube as well. As I've mentioned before, I want to get you guys more involved so we can have a mailbag portion of the pod that really happens every week, whether it's on Tuesday or it's at the end of the week when we do our pod then. But that's something I want, but that means you guys got to be involved. And I will keep an eye out for that. For those listening to the show, I'm going to read it right off the paper. We ask you to subscribe to the podcast, like and leave a review. And for those watching the show on CLNS, go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe to the Patriots Press Pass YouTube channel where you can find this show and other great Patriots content. And there is a lot of it on this channel. Also, please make sure to turn on your notifications so you know the instant a new video drops. To my guy Harrison, who's been monitoring the program, appreciate you, appreciate all you viewers, and we will see you and listeners, and we will see you at the end of the week.